Okay, everybody, I have to vent. So over the weekend, I was dealing with an offer and thankfully everything went through, but I have to say this was probably one of the most difficult negotiations I've ever dealt with. And it wasn't because we were priced too low, they were priced too high, or any of the regular stuff. It was literally because of the seller being difficult. Now, I'm not gonna dive into all those details, but it gave me the idea of making a video on what you shouldn't do when you're selling your home. Okay, let's jump into it. Before we jump into it, I want to give you guys a quick tip on something I tell all of my sellers, and that is to always work with your first offer. Now, this doesn't mean you have to accept your first offer, but I always encourage my sellers to at least work with it. So for example, if somebody comes in $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 under your asking, don't be so quick to reject it. Sometimes they just need to feel like they negotiated, but they're willing to pay your price. It's very important to work with the first offer you get and don't be quick to reject it. All right, so first thing, if an offer comes in at your asking price, never sign back higher. This is when people start to get greedy. Okay, an offer comes in really quick, maybe the first, second, third day that you've been on the market, you start to get a little bit of a little worried, did you list too low? And then you're enticed to say, you know what, let me sign back higher. There are some legalities in why you can't do this. We're not going to dive into that right now, but on the principle, it's quite a dishonest way of negotiating. You have set your price that you're willing to accept, and now subsequently you've changed your mind. For the most part, it's going to insult your buyer. Now, let's dive away for a second and start to talk about buyers in our current market situation. Now more than ever, it is extremely difficult to get approved. So when you have a buyer that has gone through the rigorous trouble of getting pre-approved with today's new regulations, you got to understand that we need to treat these people like gold. Now, with my sellers, I always go through a rigorous research period where we really dive in and go through all the data to determine what the true market value of your property is. On the flip side, I also do this, like many other realtors, with my buyers. Before we put an offer, we establish what the true market value of a property is. And we take in a lot of different variables before we come to that understanding. So, when you as a seller have set a price and a buyer has met that price and you subsequently change it to a higher setting, you're just asking for the deal to be killed. All in all, just never sign higher than your asking price. Now, if a buyer wants to offer you more than your asking price, fantastic, take the offer. But yeah, never sign back higher than your asking price. Moving on. Rental items, your furnace, your AC, these are things to be bought out by the seller. Now, this may be uncommon in other markets, but where I trade in Durham and Toronto, this is common practice. And sellers, really, you shouldn't look at that as a negotiable item. In fact, anyone watching this, if you're getting these items replaced in your home and the installer is offering you a rental option, keep in mind that when it does come time to sell, you are most likely going to have to buy them out, and these things can get expensive. I completely understand because you're looking at anywhere 5 to 10 grand taken off the top. It's better to plan ahead so you're not having to deal with that struggle when it comes time to sell. Now keep in mind, if you do put up a fight with your buyers over these little ticket items, ultimately you're just going to scare them away. A pre-approved buyer has options in a market like this where it's fair. They can always find another house, and subsequently, yeah, you can find another buyer, but chances are you're going to run into the same problem over and over again. So do yourself a favor, either don't rent these items or prepare to buy them out. Now, this other one is more of an excuse I hear from sellers. I've heard it during negotiations when I'm on the buyer or seller side, and quite frankly, I'm sick of it. When a seller says, I'll wait for my price. Yeah. What you don't seem to realize when you say this is you're not truly waiting for a buyer, you're waiting for the market to catch up with your unrealistic expectation. But far more often than not, houses that are on the market longer where the seller is waiting for their price, subsequently sell for lower than market value. This is because a home gets the most exposure in its first 2 weeks on the market. Once that time is done, you are left with what I like to call a stale listing. Now, a stale listing is like a bad infection. It completely consumes the house. It's very difficult to recover from changing sales tactics, maybe adding a bit more to the marketing budget, to changing brokerages and agents altogether. We live in the era of information, so once it's out on the internet, it's there to stay. And when buyers can see the previous listing with different photos and that it's been sitting there for a long time, they're inclined to give you a lower offer. You are far better off pricing the property right the first time and avoiding this headache altogether. Oh my God. Pets. I get it, people. You love your pets. You know, they are part of the family. But there's one thing you're forgetting. You've gone nose blind to their pet odors. But the people coming to view your home, you know, the guys who are willing to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars for it, they haven't. Now, don't get insulted. People are allowed to have pets. Plenty of my sellers do. But the quick and easy fix is to admit that there's pet odors that you've gone nose blind to, go to Canadian Tire, pick up a couple of odor eaters, put them strategically around the house, and eliminate the problem. I have walked into homes that when you look at the photos look immaculate, but the moment my buyers walk into that door, all they can smell is Fluffy's wet dog smell. Think about it. You've spent all this money on professional photography, staging, you've painted the place, and all your potential buyers can think about is the smell of Fluffy. Buy the odor eaters, guys. Just buy the odor eaters. They're like $5 at Canadian Tire. All right, guys, my rant is done. Now, if you agree or disagree with anything I had to say today, throw it in the comments. I'll be sure to respond. Now, if you like this video, want to see more, hit subscribe, hit the notification bell, and smack that like button.